Hey, it's 9:05.
Excuse me.
I'm going to call the meeting to order. Establish that we have a quorum.
Yay.
I'll make
Yay.
a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'd like to talk about approve of the report for the select board.
I'll make a motion that we approve it as submitted to the selectmen as prepared by Dorothy.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to approve the minutes of January 14th, 16th,
Wow.
23rd, and February 20th.
And March 13th.
And March 13th.
In March
Don't miss
13th.
that.
Oh, next one down.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss changes in the Fairwinds fiscal year 2020 contract and protocol regarding such changes. And I'm going to turn it over to Rachel to discuss that.
Thank you.
So,
Do I have enough?
yes, I'll go and 1, 2. Do you have one?
Yeah, I think so. So I had, did I yes, so I redrafted all the contracts. So the old contract review contracts were in a format that, I guess I inherited. And as I started going through and updating them to include the statement of work and change the dates, there was some language in there that kind of jumped out at me. So a few years back or so, I know town council had updated some of the language they wanted in the contracts. And as I started reading it line by line, I went, okay, these need updating. So worked with Brian, I did that, sent them all to all 11 of the agencies. I received a call and then an email back from Vanessa at Fairwinds, and she had indicated that there was two things that when I had done the contract, I asked them to review the statement of work in a few other areas. So she said there's two things in there that they wanted to make us aware of and asked to just have changed. One being mentoring youth. So last year, if you recall, it was not in the contract because it wasn't in their proposal. This year, they put it back into their proposal. However, they have learned that they have other grants that can cover the program, so that they asked that since they didn't get the full funding, that they shift the funding off of mentoring youth and put it into the other two areas that they asked you to fund. I had indicated that, bottom line, I didn't tell her this specifically, but you voted for the 113, whatever it was, as a bottom line. You didn't really say X to mentoring youth, X to this, X to this. So I said, I think as long as I'm going to keep it in the statement of work, I'm going to keep it in the quarterly report, still report on the program and the numbers, but just put 0 for the dollar request. And then also, make sure you're indicating what the grants are. Can you please just, put that in email? I'll redraft it, send it to you, let me know your thoughts. I did ask Dorothy about it, forwarded it to her and said FYI, and that's where kind of the thing in writing came from, to clarify a few points. I think one of the concerns was, will the program continue, or is this one way that they're going to discontinue the program and say that there's no funding for?
Which program? The mentoring?
Mentoring youth.
Okay.
The other one that they asked to change is because I write in the statement of work, I specifically wrote, as they had wrote in their application, the hours of the urgent behavioral health clinic, which included Saturday hours. So in 2 prior meetings that I had outside of here, so I guess you could call it insider knowledge, I was aware that they were not being utilized on Saturdays the way that they thought they would. So they were looking into shifting the hours to where they're most seeing the people coming in, which is ultimately, I believe, Tuesday through Thursday. And so she said, is there a way that you can just remove that, because we're ultimately changing it and our clinic hours specifically are changing, but the clinic is still being offered. We're just shifting our resources to where the need is. And I personally, I wasn't that was an element of this that I didn't think was an issue at all, because I looked at it as an organization and their board were making that determination of how best to use their resources. So I didn't I told her I'll just strike that last sentence in the statement of work that just specifically says the hours, because ultimately none of the other contracts that I did say it either. But, you know, in discussion with Dorothy, there is a protocol that's in place that you had done. My interpretation of that protocol is that it's for applications and that application process. However, this came in after your vote, after town meeting vote, in preparation of the contracts, and that's not clear in the protocol. So what you have before you is, and sorry, I'll back up. I agree that you should be aware of changes, and they should be in writing. So what you have before you is a letter dated May 21st from Vanessa outlining the mentoring youth and the change in hours to the urgent behavioral health. As well as it starts, I numbered it page 1, I didn't number the letter, but it's the proposal for advertising protocol, late submissions and documentation amendment requests. That's a very large name for a document, but it goes from advertising, late submissions in the application, documented amendment request of the application, and then on the next page is where you get changes upon funding reward, changes request upon execution of contract, and then the quarterly report review. So this page 2 of the protocol is ultimately where we can dive into if you agree, not change, more or less, however. So I will now let you review the Fairwinds letter and discuss that if you want. And
You have a
then you can go
typo
to the,
in
I'm sure I do. I was
Just spent instead of spend.
trying to get this done before the meeting.
Spell check does not help.
So is that a good enough intro?
I think it's a
You
great
want
intro.
to take it from there?
Yeah, I think it's a great intro. So the question became that we had, and the reason I requested this was because it is a change from what we had initially made the recommendation for. And I wanted it in writing because when they first presented to us mentoring youth, they hadn't really presented it quite in the scheme of how it was going on. And I felt that if there was going to be a change in a recommendation that we had made, we should have it in writing and agree upon the recommendation.
And
So
this
that's
will,
this letter.
this will go as part of the contract file
Right.
as well, so it's clear. That
And-
way, if later on, all of a sudden they stop the program, you certainly will have a way to say, this is what you
Right.
indicated, it's in the file.
So my request to Rachel was that we just keep in there that we would like to, in the quarterly reports, be kept up to date with mentoring youth and how the program is running as part of the contract.
And I would, I mean, just as part of the discussion, I would guess that that is a program that they can reach out to some of the places they've gotten to and get support in a way that they couldn't for the psychiatric services. In other words, mentoring, that mentoring youth program is sort of wasn't in their
A
original
lot more
charge.
appealing than,
Well, but isn't
Mental
their
health,
original charge? It is related to what they
Yeah.
do, obviously, it impacts it. But that's something you can go to the golf club, or you can go to Tuppence, and you can say, here, this direct impact on youthful behavior, and you know, you can sell that to to people as I'm just saying it. I have every expectation if they keep their organization together, that's something they will can keep going and not have to depend on the town funds.
No, I agree.
That's just a matter
It's
of
a sellable
just
commodity.
impression.
Yeah.
it's much easier to raise funds for than some mental health issues.
It is sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
children.
Children.
And I think, you know, given the history of this organization, it's a pretty responsible thing for them to do. To go find a different funding for this and then shift it to the things where we know we really need it.
Right.
So if you do it in an organized way, then our problem in the past has been that it's been total disorganization, but it seems that they are getting that house much better in order than we've ever had before.
I would agree with you. I'm
And
totally agree.
you're much closer to it than I am.
I think that Chris has made a huge difference, and I think the new board has, is striving to change it and to change it for the better, to make it a more viable organization for the community.
Now, do you need a motion to add this red language?
I have a comment first.
Yeah, I'm gonna let
We're
Linda,
there
I'm
yet.
gonna,
Sorry.
I'm gonna let Linda speak.
I agree with everything John said, and I also don't think that we should be micromanaging days and hours.
Oh,
So I'm perfectly happy with what they've proposed. If they find that Saturdays are needed, I'm sure they will just shift back to having Saturday hours of some sort, because summer is here now. And that could be after Friday night fights at the bar. So I think it's perfectly reasonable, and I agree with Rachel, this should be attached to their contract as their latest proposal, within the scope of their original proposal.
So can,
Bert, you were making a motion?
Yeah,
Well, that was on the protocol.
on the protocol, the red
well,
language.
then can we do this first?
Okay.
We discuss this
Yeah.
first?
yeah.
And,
I'll make a motion on the Fairwinds proposal for the changes to their contract. I guess is where we're going.
to accept the changes to their
Yeah.
contract with us being able to know, them having the quarterly reports,
Yeah,
the report on mentoring youth.
yeah.
Okay, do I have a
Just repeat
second?
that.
Second.
Yeah, so wait, can we?
She made a
Linda-
motion, yeah, just
Linda, will
to,
you redo your motion, please?
because I didn't hear her.
Motion to accept the Fairwinds proposal for the change, and that they continue to update us on mentoring youth at the quarterly reports.
Thank you.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
One thing, the way I did the quarterly report for them, mentoring youth is not an issue. I'm just wondering, based on their second request, it is laid out right now that it just says, like monthly utilization. Do you have any interest for me to break it out Mondays through
No.
Fridays, or just keep it the monthly utilization?
I would do monthly utilization to allow them to
Because
do
that's
it.
micromanaging, and that would be
I just didn't know if
time-consuming.
that's
No.
data
No.
you wanted to see. or-
No, okay, we had a second, can I have that second again?
I did, John did too.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And so what we were trying to talk is protocol regarding the changes. So here we go.
Just change spend to spent, second line down.
Yep.
So ultimately, changes upon funding award is addressing what you ultimately just did. So that right before the execution of the contract, but after the vote for funding allocation. So that's pretty much allowing to say this is how you do
You
it.
have to do it.
Changes upon request of the execution of the contract, it's already set forth in the contract. If there's change, it has to be written, how many days, who the notice goes to, an amendment to the contract has to be done. So this just kind of solidifies that, but you would have to be informed. And that was the one area I wasn't sure, because it just says the committee shall be informed of such request, but I didn't know if you wanted to review it before the amendment is submitted.
I would,
Mm.
I would like to review it because I think that we make recommendations based upon what's presented to us.
Yep.
And it would, I think we have to keep that check and balance in place.
Take the D off of approved, second from the bottom line on that middle section.
Oh, so I kind of did do that then. So the committee shall be informed of such requests and approve changes at the next applicable meeting,
Yeah.
or if one is not anticipated or scheduled via email.
Yeah.
And that way, what I allowed for is to send it out and say, FYI, here's the change, do you agree or not? So that if for some reason people couldn't, that's the only thing I don't know if is actually allowed.
It's
So,
I
not,
don't
it's
think
called a
it's not.
rolling meeting,
yeah,
so we cannot vote on, by email. So I would take that
so
out.
just
Yeah.
right at the next applicable meeting,
Yep.
and then strike everything in thereafter.
Yep.
Okay.
And if something comes in, then George has to call it.
You can let us know.
Meeting.
We just can't vote that way.
I'm gonna then add any approved changed by the committee will be submitted as an amendment to the contract.
Good,
Yeah.
good word.
Yeah.
So the last is quarterly reports review. It has, in an effort to try to have more checks and balances as to whether the grant money is being used, and how they're doing throughout their year, we come up with the idea of meeting after quarterly reports are in to review them before payments go out.
The only correction to that one, just to make it more clear, you say provide such documentation or amendment within 10 calendar days of what? Repeat, whatever that is, supposed to be 10 days of what specific date within 10 days of? See what I'm saying? It's just sort of within 10 days of.
The receipt of request.
Yeah, of whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this also was added because even though it says up here, it's kind of related to the application, so this is related to ongoing. But I know, I think later in your agenda you talk about it, meeting, so I'll
Yeah.
leave it alone.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask now with the changes that have been written in this and the edits.
I'll make a motion to approve the changes as corrected here today.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
You
take
do
it,
good
this-
work,
done with
Rachel.
take it this next thing is just reformatting.
Well, the next thing, so, what was it? I don't know if you want to. No. That's, it relates to number 8, so I'll let Dorothy do number 7 on the agenda.
Okay, so I had just mentioned it, what we would like to do is have a CRC meeting after every quarterly report. As they come in as a better check and balance for the town, and for us to be able to better monitor whether or not the contracts are being actually followed with the funding. So, that's what's on the table.
Fine with me. I
Well,
assume
do you
that
wanna have
would
that-
be
What
April.
months do the
July.
quarterly reports come in?
They come in-
March?
October is the first one, January, April, and the last quarterly report comes in June. I mean, yeah. No, July, like around July 7th. But
So it's
that's the
4
fourth
times a
quarter.
year.
Yeah, so it's basically not during the vacation months of January, February, and March.
Well, January is the second one, second quarter.
Right.
Comes in, but it's usually the beginning of January.
And it's usually when we're in deliberations anyway. So it's 4 times a year.
So they're due January 1st, April
October.
1st, April 1st,
Yeah. Well, it's like,
September
yeah,
1st, December, whatever those,
Right,
the first of those quarters.
Yeah.
October, January,
Well, it's not
April, and.
exactly on the 1st. I
Right.
think we push it,
Back because of June,
I
right?
think I did it the following, like,
Right, because
Wednesdays or
June
Fridays.
had the
So,
invoice
like,
by
if
July
it's
to get
The
the
first
first
week of
quarter
the
ends
month.
September 30th, say, then, you know, give them at least 5 calendar days
Yeah.
to get their data together and
Yeah.
submit it. So but it's ultimately in the first week.
So the meeting is
Right.
always the month after the end of the quarter, because they're that tied.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they would be set meetings. We would know the set dates because the
Yeah.
quarterly reports would be coming in.
Okay,
And you can probably
Need a motion
establish
to,
those once you,
make the change?
Once we figure out the dates of the,
yeah,
Yeah.
once you meet and knock.
Yep.
So it'd be sort of the beginning of the second week if you've given the first week of the next month.
Yeah.
So the very beginning of the second week of those months.
because we want to meet and be able to get them submitted.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we meet to discuss the quarterly reports after they've been submitted.
Second.
Each quarter.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Review and update fiscal year 2021 grant package.
John, that's this thing, the next page.
So when I mentioned I updated the contracts, ultimately the contract is part of the grant package. So Ann advertises based on the protocol, and they get ultimately this document to kind of review so that they're aware of what the contract is. There has been some discussion about updating based on, because the last Council for Human Services report was 2010. So this is supposed to incorporate the hospital improvement needs assessment. Although if you actually look at the changes that I made, they're extremely minor.
Board of
So
Selectmen.
it's not even, it's not really that big of a deal. But ultimately, I redid the contracts, reformatted the contracts, so everywhere you see stricken language is from last year's packet, updated. So everywhere there it said Board of Selectmen, and it was the Select Board, the dates are updated. So the community needs assessment is really the way you kind of award your funding is supposed to be based on level 1, level 2. And there was really only a little bit of politically correct updating language related to behavioral health, substance use disorder. We don't call it substance abuse anymore. And then adding language.
What do we call it now?
No,
Substance use disorder.
that's the politically correct
Yes.
phrase now?
We do not say substance abuse.
Okay.
Substance use
Substance use disorders.
disorder. I can get,
Disorders.
I'm getting that last word.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, everything else, is pretty much
The same.
the
Did
same.
we add this, the language?
Yeah, and language. That was, something else identified through the hospital was, availability, like, it wasn't just that you were providing these services, but it was the availability to provide the services. To all languages. So I just wanted you to be aware and I guess approve and vote on that I was changing your statement of need as such. So you even knew what you were doing before I just changed things.
I'll make a motion to approve the changes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Cool.
Well, that was really cool.
It was really quick
Thank
too.
you, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel, for all that.
That's a lot of work.
Take the rest of the day off.
We will
Well, it was, I think it took me 4 days straight to do all 11 contracts with new quarterly reports, statement of works, all of that. And Ann can attest to that we used to have the contract and then a quarterly report and then a statement and then all this document that they had to file in behind. And in review of it, along with legal counsel, it was, why isn't this all one document? And why are we filtering all this additional paperwork all the way through? And so it took me about 4 days to make one template and then add
Hopefully
everybody's
that'll be
actual language into the contracts.
Well, that's hard work.
But I
Tedious,
think
very
what
tedious.
I will do, if it works for you, especially once you start meeting in the fall, and once you do the quarterly report meeting, you will all get a copy of those. You'll see the quarterly reports and the statement of work, so you'll get a copy of that to see what they're reporting on. So instead of just getting the quarterly report and the invoice, what I did is I rolled the invoice and the statement of work together, so you still see the statement of work document that the quarterly report is based on, so you kind of have a reference.
Cool.
I just think it'll help make sure that they could give you a quarterly report on a bunch of data, and for all you know, it has nothing to do with what the
What they asked for.
contract is, so. I tried to make that smoother for you and for me and whoever is looking at these so that they are.
But I have a set suspicion that it's going to benefit each of these agencies also, because they'll have something that they can look at.
Yeah.
And when they start having new board members or new people coming in, it'll give them a better roadmap of
Yeah.
just what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a problem for some of them in the past, because my
Yeah.
observation in the 20 years I've been here, that a lot of these organizations founded with wonderful ideas, but sort of volunteers haphazardly working
Yeah.
together and without any framework. And it's a lot of the agencies have had to play catch up. Well,
Yeah.
Bert will know it, but much better than I, but that's just a pure observation from a newbie wash ashore.
Yeah, and then some of the
Wash ashore.
organizations,
Hard, some newbie
An
watch.
old wash ashore.
some of
Previous
the
wash
organizations end up losing their executive director, like at the food pantry, and then, you know, they
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
wander around for a while.
Yeah.
I do think you guys meeting quarterly and doing that is an awesome idea, and I'm glad you are. A lot of times we get them and look at them, and I try to send them around and process them, but to have another set of eyes. But I also think it will greatly help you when you start to review the next round
Right.
of applications,
Yep.
because their utilization and all that will be
Because you have
so
more
fresh in your
familiarity
mind.
with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it might you might have harder questions though.
Right? We might.
Agencies.
Might be a
So
good
they
thing.
might not like it, but I do.
Because we have these 4 extra meetings, I'm making a motion that we double salaries.
Can I get a second on that?
That is
I'll
the
write you
town
a
of
check right
Nantucket.
now.
Give her another week of vacation.
I would like to schedule a meeting when Denise is back, and I'm gonna find out from her on the date, because there were some questions FinCom had for us. And I would like Denise to
Yeah.
present it to us
Sure.
as a board.
I think
So-
she's back in middle of June. I think that's what the
Could
date was.
Probably try to look it up, but I do remember she replied.
She was away into June, I know that.
That's what yeah. I think I'm going the last 10 days of June.
And where are you going? Florida?
She,
Bermuda.
yep,
Oh.
she said she's off island
Back to
5/28
where
until
I,
6/7.
same place we
Until 6/7.
6/7.
So
spent our
she's off.
honeymoon.
That's where my father and my mother went. I've always
John?
wanted to go.
John, you're going away when?
I think it's the 13th to 14th of June, and I'll be back the 25th or 26th. I don't have the dates in my head. And I haven't learned to use the calendar on my smartphone yet.
Okay, so
I
can
don't
we
have
schedule a
one. I
meeting
have a
for
calendar, that's it.
Tuesday, June 11th at 9 o'clock?
I won't be back from Boston, I
Okay.
don't think by then. I fly in the night before, but then I have to catch the morning bus
Oh,
to
yeah.
Hyannis and then
Okay.
catch the next.
What about
boat.
How about
Wednesday,
the
the 12th?
At 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
okay?
What,
Is that a Thursday or Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday? John, does that work for you?
if it's early enough. If
9
it's not-
o'clock?
If it's not too long, because I'm due at the police station at 10.
I think we can handle it within the hour. What
Okay.
Diane-
It's only
what-
that one issue.
It's one thing that Denise wants to talk to
Okay,
us
I mean,
about.
that's fine.
Okay, so if we could see if we can get availability for Wednesday, the 12th, 9 AM, okay? And
Wherever.
I'll send,
Yeah.
probably here, wherever they can get.
Yep.
And I will talk with Denise about, so she can make the presentation.
June 12th,
Okay.
was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wednesday, June 12th at 9.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Thank
You
you.
can't.
Second.
Oh, sorry. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion
Give
to
me a
adjourn
motion
at
to adjourn.
9:35.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
And apparently now, under Robert's rules, chairman can make motions